In this Titan Quest 2 Early Access Guide, I'm going to be giving you guys 10 tips to help you get going in this game. Some of these things are going to be a bit of a refresher if you have played Titan Quest before, but haven't played in a really long time, and some of these things are unique to Titan Quest 2, so whether you're a new player or returning player from the first game, you should get something out of this video. So the first tip I'm going to give you is don't neglect your primary attack skill. You'll be using this a lot in pretty much just about any build you use. Some builds won't use it, but a lot of builds, particularly martial-focused builds, will use it. You can put points into it to increase its capacity to get more modifiers for it. So you definitely want to make sure you have some points in this, particularly early on, so that you can get the most out of your primary attack. And note that different weapons have different modifiers. It's not completely different. They mostly have the same modifiers. But for instance, ranged and melee weapons will have some slightly different modifiers because you can't add projectiles, for instance, to a melee weapon. And another tip I want to give you guys is how to gauge the damage of your primary attack skill or of a skill that you're using. In the first game, you actually had stats in your inventory that would show you what your DPS is and what your average damage per attack would be. These are not currently in Titan Quest 2. I'm hoping they add them at some point. But what you can do is you can actually put on a piece of gear or check what your DPS is on your primary attack skill by mousing over it under the core masteries and seeing how much DPS it states there, then equipping the other piece of equipment and going back and looking at it and see if that improves it. If it improves it, it's going to deal more damage. And the same is also true for skills. If you're using some other skill that is not the primary attack skill, if you equip a piece of gear and then check to see if the damage is higher on the skill tooltip in your Earth Mastery, Storm Mastery, Warfare Mastery, Rogue Mastery, what have you, you can see if you're getting an increase in damage with that piece of gear or if it's going down. So this is a good way to gauge that, and it takes just a second to do. The next tip that I want to give you, and this should sound familiar if you're a returning Titan Quest player or if you've played Titan Quest 1 at all, is that you should actually save your attribute points to increase your stats to meet gear requirements for weapons or armor that you want to use, instead of just pumping down one line blindly and then you pick up a piece of gear and you can't quite meet the requirements for it. So I typically, when I'm leveling up until I've gotten far enough into the game, you probably won't get to this point in early access, but I typically hold all my attribute points until I pick up gear and I don't meet the requirements for it because it's too high a level and I don't have enough cunning or don't have enough agility or don't have whatever. And then I'll pump a couple points into whatever I need to in order to meet that so I can use that gear. And then when I reach that point again, I'll put in a couple more points. This is a good way to make sure you can use the gear that you're using, and since you're such a low level, it's not going to impact your damage all that much to hold on to 5, 6, 7 attribute points while you're leveling up. Obviously, as you get further into the game, you'll spend these when you have a better idea of what build you're going for, but early on, you should definitely hold on to these so you can use the gear that you want to use. And sort of piggybacking off this, each attribute in this game has a secondary attribute that's basically between two different attributes. So fitness is between agility and might. You have cunning between knowledge and agility, and you have resolve between might and knowledge. And this kind of dictates the type of build that you're going to play. And keep in mind, too, that the secondary attributes, fitness, cunning, and resolve, all focus around a damage type or a couple of damage types each. Fitness is strike and pierce damage, cunning is poison and lightning damage, and resolve is fire damage and cold damage. So if you're going for a build with a couple of these damage types, you want to try and make sure to match them as best as possible and increase these to increase their damage. And as I just mentioned, you probably, when you're leveling up, want to hold your attribute points for your gear, but just keep these things in mind for later on as you get higher and higher level, that you want to be trying to focus on these secondary attributes that match the damage types that you're doing. So the next thing I want to talk a little bit more is actually damage types and status effects, or ailments. And each ailment in this game has an effect. Most of them are damage over time. Some slow the target, some interrupt the target. But usually it's damage over time, and each status effect or ailment correlates to a damage type. So if you do fire damage, then you have a chance to set the target on fire, doing burning, which does damage over time. If you chill the target, it will do damage over time and slow them. If you do pierce damage, it will trigger bleeding, etc. And this is really important to note because you might want to stack damage over time on a target by having a weapon that has 2 or more of these damage types, or using different skills that have different damage types, so you can stack up these status effects. And there are a few things that influence the ailment chance that you have. If you have increased ailment chance on your gear, or increased burn chance, or chill chance, or whatever, that's going to make it more likely to do those status effect types, or if it's just ailment chance, any status effect as a whole. If you deal more damage, that's going to make it more likely, and obviously the resistance of the target is going to make it more likely as well. And if you have high enough chance in terms of ailment, you can actually stack more than one stack at a time. And you can only have up to 10 stacks of each ailment on a target at once with a maximum total of 20 stacks. So if you have a weapon that has 3 different damage types, which there are a few in the game, particularly unique weapons, you could theoretically stack up to 20 stacks. It would be 3 different types, and it would be like 6, 7, 7, or some combination. But usually you have 2 damage types on a weapon. On my character with a bow, I have poison and I have pierce, so I'm triggering plague and I'm triggering bleed, which is up to 10 stacks each, and that does a lot of damage over time. So keep in mind that you probably want to have at least 2 damage types to try and reach that status effect cap if you can. The next thing I want to talk about is mana and health potions. At the beginning of the game, you will start with 2 health potions and 1 mana potion. And the way these work is you can actually pick up like equipment that is a health potion and a mana potion and replace the default ones that you have, not on like Path of Exile or something like that. And these can have bonuses on them that further improve your character, so you want to be on the lookout for those. Those are typically the gold color, or at least they are on the classic set, which is what I have here. So you want to keep an eye out for these, even if you're not like trying to pick up gold gear, you want to look for those potions. And health potions replenish on dealing damage to an enemy or boss, while the mana potion replenishes over time. So if you can be very aggressive and deal lots of damage quickly, you can actually face tank a lot of bosses and things in this game, or enemies. So keep that in mind just by spamming potions and then attacking and replenishing it. So being aggressive works very well for health potions, whereas mana potions, you kind of just have to wait for them to be back. It's like 12 or 15 seconds for the mana potion to replenish. So you can't just spam spells, mana potion, spam spells, mana potion, etc. The next thing I want to talk about is Overwhelm and Flow. There are a couple of other mechanics that are similar to these in the game, but your primary attack will build up what's called Overwhelm when you use it by default. And there are skills in this game that can consume that Overwhelm in order to do additional things, usually more damage. For instance, in my build here with the Rain of Arrows skill, if I have 3 stacks of Overwhelm, which basically is 3 attacks with my primary attack, then I can get increased damage when I use that skill. So I usually shoot it a few times and then use that skill in order to maximize its effect. You can also modify your primary attack to give you flow, and some skills can be modified to consume flow in order to deal increased damage or some sort of effect. And there are other abilities like Amplify that work similarly, where they can stack up and give you increased bonuses. It's good to read these on the skills that you have, but the 2 most common ones you will find are probably Overwhelm and Flow. And usually the way these work is just by attacking with your primary attack or some other skill. You'll see the stacks on the bottom there on top of your skill bar when you have them, and then they're consumed when you use an ability that consumes them. The next thing I want to talk about is Divinity. Divinity is new to Titan Quest 2. It didn't exist in the first game, but it is the primary means and only means of ranking up your masteries to reach higher and higher skills in your skill trees. And the ways you do this are by leveling up after a certain point in the game. I think it's like level 6 or level 7, you'll start getting 1 Divinity point per level that you get. And also by completing like the main quests of the game and doing the objectives inside those main quests will give you a good amount of Divinity for each one of those. So by the time you reach level 22, if you make it that far, you will actually have enough Divinity to reach 18 in both mastery trees. But until that point, you'll have to prioritize which tree you want to get to 18 in first. And then you can either, you can go all the way up one tree, or you can go up both trees simultaneously. But you're going to have to decide which one to reach 18 in first. And then at level 22, you'll be able to do both. So just know that. And something else about this, you can actually respec your Divinity if you want. If you decide, oh, I'm playing Warfare, but I really want to get my Rogue Mastery higher first, and I want to pull a couple points out and go up Rogue to 18 or 6 or whatever it is, you can actually respec those, and it's not hard to do, and it's not super expensive. So mess around with that if you need to. And the last couple points are somewhat related. The first is that you can actually spend gold in this game at little sort of totem things outside where you fought a boss in order to respawn that boss. In Titan Quest 1, you would just exit the game and relaunch it, and then the boss would reappear and you would farm it. In this game, you pay gold at that, and I think it increases as your level increases, and then you can farm that boss again to try and get drops from it. Usually bosses have specific loot tables. They can obviously drop randomized weapons as well, but sometimes they have specific uniques that only drop from them or are more likely to drop from them, or maybe they just have a chance of dropping unique that's more likely than regular enemies. So they're definitely worth farming, especially once you kind of, are most of the way through the early access and you don't have a lot of left things to do. It's a big part of Titan Quest was farming these bosses. So definitely get in the habit of saving your gold to do that when possible. And the last thing is, at the Ritual Shrine in town, you can actually increase the level of enemies in order to increase the XP you get from them and also the level of items that drop from them. This is quite expensive gold-wise. You can also increase the difficulty of the game if you started on the easiest difficulty and you want to move to the second difficulty, you can do that. But the main thing you're going to use this for, probably besides respeccing your attributes, is to increase the level of the enemies. And this usually happens when you're done with early access and you don't really have a lot left on a character, but you want to keep playing that character. This will allow you to farm the bosses at higher level, and it makes the enemies the same level as you and the bosses the same level as you. So it's quite expensive, as I mentioned. You don't want to do it all the time because of its cost, but you probably want to do it every 2 or 3 levels in order to increase the quality of items that you're getting, in order to make your character stronger if you want to keep playing that character. So that wraps up my beginner guide for Titan Quest 2. I hope you found these tips helpful. Some of these things will be obvious to you after you play a little bit longer. Some of them are meant for brand new players. Others are meant for players that have played a bit already. So I hope you guys got something out of this one. As always, if you have other tips for people out there, things I forgot to mention, you can leave those in the comments. Or if you have questions about how certain mechanics work, you can leave them there as well.